Picture this. Two people meet. The chemistry is electric. They're texting till 2 a.m., finishing each other's sentences, laughing at jokes that aren't even that funny. Their friends say, "Wow, you two are perfect together." Fast forward just a few weeks. Silence. The texts dry up, calls go unanswered. Suddenly, the same person who couldn't go a day without talking to you disappears like a ghost. And you're left wondering, what happened? Did I do something wrong? Wasn't this supposed to be love? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Relationships that start fast often end even faster. And it's not just casual flings. We see it in serious dating, even in marriages. A spark that once burned so bright fizzles out quicker than anyone expected. Here's the big question we're going to unpack today. If love feels so magical in the beginning, why does it crash and burn so quickly? Is it that people change? Is it that the love wasn't real in the first place? Or is there something deeper happening beneath the surface that most of us don't see until it's too late? The truth is, relationships don't usually fail overnight. They fail in patterns, subtle signs, hidden expectations, and small cracks that eventually turn into a collapse. And today, we're going to uncover those patterns. We'll explore the honeymoon phase, the traps of unrealistic expectations, poor communication, trust issues, emotional immaturity, and yes, even the baggage we bring from our past. So before you give up on love, or before you rush headfirst into it again, stick around, because understanding why relationships fail so fast might just be the key to finally making one last. Have you ever noticed how the first few weeks or even months of a relationship feel like stepping into a different universe? Every message feels electric, every glance feels meaningful. Even the most ordinary moments, like making breakfast or watching Netflix, seem extraordinary when shared with this person. It's like your brain is throwing a private party just for the two of you. You're riding a high that feels endless. You tell your friends, "I've never felt anything like this." And honestly, it does feel like the most real, intense love you've ever known. But here's the catch. That feeling? It's partly an illusion. Think of it like a sugar rush. The moment you take that first bite of candy, your brain lights up. You feel euphoric, unstoppable, but it's temporary. Eventually, the sugar crash comes. And when it does, you're left craving more, wondering why the high doesn't last. The same thing happens in relationships. Scientists call it the honeymoon phase, a cocktail of dopamine, oxytocin, and adrenaline flooding your brain. Every new discovery about your partner releases a burst of excitement. Every late-night conversation, every little touch, every shared laugh amplifies it. Your brain literally tricks you into thinking this connection is more perfect than it might actually be. Imagine fireworks exploding in the night sky. Bright, beautiful, breathtaking, but they don't last forever. Eventually, the sparks fade and the sky is just dark. The intensity that once felt unstoppable slowly levels out. And if your relationship hasn't yet developed roots beyond the fireworks, real understanding, trust, and communication, the crash can feel devastating. So what happens when the fireworks die out, when the sugar rush fades, and you're left with just the ordinary, everyday reality of being with someone? That's the moment many relationships start to falter. Small disagreements feel bigger. Minor annoyances suddenly feel unbearable. The thrill that once masked flaws and differences is gone. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. How unrealistic expectations and fantasy love can make this crash even harder, and why most people don't see it coming until it's too late. Imagine Sarah. She met Alex at a friend's party, and everything felt like a scene from a movie. Alex laughed at all her jokes, remembered the tiniest details about her day, and seemed perfect. In her mind, she built him up into this flawless partner, a man who would never argue, never disappoint, always understand. But then reality crept in.
The little quirks she once found charming suddenly irritated her. Alex forgot their anniversary. He didn't text back as quickly as she wanted. Small disagreements, once shrugged off, now felt like red flags. And Sarah felt hurt, like Alex had betrayed the fantasy she'd carefully crafted in her mind. Here's the thing, most of us are guilty of this. We bring expectations into relationships that no one could realistically meet. Movies show us grand gestures and love at first sight. Social media shows us perfectly curated couples who always seem happy, adventurous, and in sync. Cultural myths whisper that true love should feel effortless, constant, and all-consuming. The problem, these expectations are invisible pressure cookers. They don't just set our partners up to fail, they set the relationship up to fail. When reality inevitably falls short of the fantasy, disappointment isn't just inevitable, it feels like betrayal. That's why arguments erupt over seemingly small things. That's why one forgotten text or a misunderstood comment can feel like the end of the world. It's almost like we're watching a movie in our heads, expecting real life to follow the script. And when it doesn't, the crash is hard. Emotional wounds flare up, trust is tested, and resentment can quietly grow.
But here's the good news. Recognizing these expectations doesn't mean your relationship is doomed. It means you can see the cracks before they widen. You can learn to separate fantasy from reality and start appreciating your partner as a human being, not a flawless character in your story. Because here's the truth. Relationships don't fail just because someone forgets a date or leaves socks on the floor. They fail when our fantasies set the stage for disappointment, when our minds create a love story that reality simply can't match. And that brings us to another silent killer of relationships: emotional skills, or more often, the lack of them. Because even when expectations are realistic, the way we handle feelings, conflicts, and disappointment can determine whether love survives or fades. Meet Jason and Mia. They've been dating for a few months, and on the surface, everything seems fine. But one evening, a tiny disagreement over dinner plans spirals out of control. Jason wanted pizza, Mia wanted Thai. A harmless difference, right? Yet suddenly, voices are raised, old frustrations resurface, and what started as a simple choice becomes a full-blown argument. By the end of the night, both feel hurt, misunderstood, and maybe even ready to question the whole relationship. This is where emotional skills, or the lack of them, show their power. Emotional maturity isn't about never getting upset. It's about knowing how to navigate feelings without letting them destroy the connection. Emotional immaturity, on the other hand, is letting small sparks ignite wildfires. Think of it like trying to drive a sports car without lessons. The car is powerful, beautiful, full of potential, but without skill, every turn, every acceleration, every brake becomes a risk. That's what happens when emotions are strong, but we don't know how to manage them. So, what does emotional maturity actually look like in relationships? Listening before reacting. Really hear what your partner's saying, not just what you think they mean. Empathy. Understand their feelings, even if you don't agree with their perspective. Managing your reactions. Pause, breathe, and respond thoughtfully rather than explosively. Taking responsibility. Admit when you're wrong and apologize sincerely. Even small disagreements, when handled with these skills, can become opportunities to grow closer rather than push each other away. But when emotions go unchecked, they amplify every flaw, every misunderstanding, and every unmet expectation. Over time, these unresolved conflicts silently erode love.
Here's the key takeaway. It's not about finding a perfect partner. It's about learning to handle yourself, your emotions, and your reactions so that even in disagreement, connection remains intact.
And this leads us directly to another major reason relationships fail: communication, or the lack of it. Because even with emotional skills, if couples stop talking, stop sharing, and stop truly listening, love can quietly slip away. Let's talk about communication, or more accurately, what happens when it stops. Meet Emma and Liam. At first, they talked constantly about their dreams, their fears, even the weird little habits they'd never told anyone else. But over time, the conversations changed. Now, Emma expects Liam to just know what she's feeling. Liam, on the other hand, thinks Emma is overreacting to things he considers small. And just like that, a silent wall starts to grow between them. This is the communication breakdown. It's not always loud fights or explosive arguments. More often, it's quiet. Small frustrations go unspoken. Feelings get bottled up. Questions go unanswered. And slowly, the connection that once felt electric starts to feel distant. We see this pattern over and over. Silence. Neither partner wants to rock the boat, so issues go unaddressed. Avoidance. Difficult conversations are postponed indefinitely, sometimes never happening at all. Defensiveness. When someone does speak up, the response is often blame, criticism, or shutting down. Here's the dramatic truth. Love doesn't die in one blow. It dies in quiet neglect. Not in the big arguments, but in the tiny moments when hearts stop connecting. When words that could heal or clarify are left unsaid, when empathy is replaced by assumption. Think about the small ways we fail to communicate. A text left unanswered, a sigh instead of a conversation, a feeling assumed instead of expressed. Alone, these moments seem insignificant, but over weeks and months, they pile up, and suddenly, a relationship that once felt alive feels empty. And here's the kicker. Sometimes it's not even about communication itself. You can talk, you can express, you can share, and a relationship can still fail. Because even the most open communication can't fix one other critical factor: timing. Timing, the life stage, personal growth, and emotional readiness of each partner can determine whether a love story survives or quietly fades away. Think about Mia and Daniel. They met at a summer festival, sparks flew instantly, and within a month, they were calling each other soulmates. Every weekend was an adventure, every text a thrill. Friends admired their whirlwind romance, but beneath the excitement, there was a quiet risk.
A few months later, cracks began to show. Arguments erupted over small issues they hadn't faced before. Their differences, once masked by the thrill of new love, became harder to ignore. And they both wondered, did we rush into this? Rushed commitments often feel exciting at first, like jumping off a cliff into a sparkling lake. But without a solid foundation, the landing can hurt. It's like building a house on sand. The walls may stand for a while, but storms and pressure eventually reveal the weakness. Timing matters. Personal growth, emotional readiness, career stages, life priorities all play a huge role in whether a relationship can survive. Two people can love each other deeply, but if one isn't ready to commit fully, or if life circumstances are misaligned, even the strongest connection can falter.
Sometimes we confuse the intensity of feelings with readiness for commitment. We think, I love this person, that should be enough. But love alone can't navigate the challenges of differences, life stress, and personal growth. Without time, patience, and intentional foundation building, relationships that start fast often crash just as quickly.
Here's the key takeaway. Timing isn't about luck, it's about alignment between life stages, emotional maturity, and readiness for deeper commitment. Skip this step, and even the brightest sparks can fade. And yet, even when timing is perfect, another silent threat can undermine love: trust, or the lack of it. Because without trust, every disagreement, every disappointment, and every misstep becomes magnified. Let's meet Alex and Jenna. At first, everything seemed perfect. But one evening, Alex told a small lie. Nothing major, just a little white lie about where he'd been. Jenna didn't think much of it at the time, but later she noticed inconsistencies. She asked questions. Alex got defensive. And suddenly, that tiny lie grew into bigger doubts. Trust is fragile. It's the invisible foundation that makes a relationship feel safe. When it's strong, you can argue, disagree, even make mistakes, and still feel secure in your connection. But when trust is cracked, even the smallest conflicts feel like earthquakes. Every late reply, every forgotten promise, every misstep becomes evidence that something is wrong. Think of trust like glass, a clear, solid sheet that lets you see the beauty of your relationship. Once it's cracked, though, it can never return to its original clarity. Even if the pieces are repaired, the cracks are always there, reflecting light differently, reminding you that the foundation isn't as strong as it seemed.
Without trust, love becomes a constant test. Partners second-guess each other, assume the worst, and start building walls instead of bridges. And the sad truth? Many relationships don't fail because love isn't there. They fail because trust has been chipped away, often slowly, often without dramatic explosions, until one day it's gone. And here's the deeper truth. Even trust itself can be sabotaged by something more personal, something we carry inside ourselves. Past hurts, insecurities, and unhealed wounds can make it almost impossible to fully trust even when a partner is trustworthy. That's the root underneath many fast-failing relationships: self-sabotage and emotional baggage. Because sometimes relationships fail not because of the other person or even timing, but because we haven't healed enough to love fully and freely. Meet Daniel. He just started dating Claire, and on the surface, things are going well. But every time Claire does something even slightly forgetful, like missing a call or forgetting to share a detail, Daniel feels a rush of anger and disappointment. It's confusing for him because Claire hasn't done anything wrong. Here's the truth. Daniel is projecting. Past hurts, betrayals, and insecurities from previous relationships are coloring his perception of Claire. He's carrying emotional baggage he hasn't fully processed, and now even the smallest mistakes feel like catastrophic failures. We all carry baggage to some degree: past heartbreaks, fears of abandonment, insecurities about our worth, or trust issues from previous partners. And when these unresolved feelings enter a new relationship, they can act like invisible tripwires. A partner who is completely innocent suddenly triggers old wounds, and the relationship can unravel before it even has a chance to fully grow. Sometimes relationships fail fast, not because of them, but because of us, because we haven't taken the time to heal, reflect, and understand ourselves. Our fears and assumptions make us react in ways that push people away even when they are trying to love us well. But here's the hopeful part. Awareness is the first step. Recognizing your baggage doesn't make you flawed, it makes you human. And once you see it, you can take intentional steps to unpack it, process it, and stop projecting it onto someone who deserves a fresh start. So if baggage can make love collapse quickly, the next question becomes, how do we make love last? How do we move past the illusions, the misunderstandings, the misaligned timing, the trust issues, and our own emotional walls to build a relationship that endures? That's exactly what we're about to explore next.
the strategies, habits, and mindsets that allow couples to nurture a connection that grows stronger over time.
Let's meet Rachel and Mark. Their relationship wasn't perfect, far from it. They had arguments, misunderstandings, and moments where they questioned whether they were right for each other. But unlike many couples who give up when the honeymoon phase fades, Rachel and Mark decided to approach love differently. First, they embraced patience. Instead of expecting instant perfection, they gave each other room to grow. Mistakes weren't disasters, they were opportunities to learn and adapt. Second, they prioritized communication. They didn't just talk, they listened. When conflict arose, they asked questions, clarified intentions, and made sure the other felt heard. No assumptions, no silent walls, no letting frustrations fester. Third, they practiced self-awareness. They understood their own triggers, baggage, and emotional patterns. By knowing themselves, they could recognize when old fears were influencing their reactions and choose to respond thoughtfully instead of react impulsively. Fourth, they honed their emotional skills, managing frustration, showing empathy, and offering reassurance even when the relationship felt challenging. These small, consistent acts built trust and deepened their connection over time. Think of it like watering a garden. Love doesn't survive on its own. It needs daily care, attention, understanding, patience, and nurturing. Rachel and Mark's relationship flourished not because they were perfect, but because they were intentional. They showed up for each other even when it was uncomfortable. And that's the empowering truth. Relationships can last. Love can endure. It can thrive, even in a world of fast fades and fleeting sparks, if we commit to the daily work of connection. The principles aren't complicated, but they do require dedication. Patience, communication, self-awareness, emotional skills, trust. They're the tools that turn fleeting passion into lasting partnership. So, now that we've explored why relationships fail so fast, and how they can survive and even flourish, let's wrap this up with the key takeaways and a final thought you'll want to remember. So, why do relationships fail so fast? Often because love isn't rooted in reality, emotional skills, trust, or patience. We rush in, ignore our baggage, and forget to nurture what's precious. But here's the truth. Love doesn't fail because it wasn't real. It fails because we forget to keep it alive. If this video resonated with you, don't just watch, engage. Subscribe for more insights, share your experiences in the comments, and explore our other videos to learn how to build relationships that last. Your love story deserves a chance to thrive.